Hey everybody, hope you're keeping well. Shoes here from This Irish Life, back again with the second part of the special on buried Ireland. We're going to continue where we left off in the last one, which is the town of Drogheda. We're going to continue to look at the mythology of the area of the Boyne Valley and the different races of people that were said to be living there in the ancient past. We're going to look at it through the eyes of the mud flood theory, which is a theory that says there was a worldwide civilization that was destroyed somehow due to a cataclysm of some sort, and the remnants is a lot of mud and sand and dirt piled high on buildings, on fields, on beaches, in deserts, on top of mountains. It looks like it was a great flood type of event that would just deposit large layers of silt. So we're going to look at it through those eyes. And today we're going to continue here with the town of Drogheda. So the town of Drogheda, a bit smaller. The town of Drogheda is over here in the east of Ireland, and this is where the River Boyne, which we discussed in the last episode, this is where it empties into the Irish Sea. Drogheda is in fact a star city. It was something I didn't really put too much emphasis on in the last one, but we'll see in a moment that this Drogheda is a star city. As a reminder, once again, we've got Newgrange and Nouth and Douth, Old Bridge. That's going to be a point of conversation. Old Bridge is where the canal starts, the canal system that runs. It runs from Old Bridge to Navan, which is a significant, I think it's 30 odd kilometres. So this is the canal that runs alongside the Boyne at Old Bridge. But Drogheda is a star city, and it means the bridge at the ford. It's one of the oldest towns in Ireland. It's in County Louth. Parts of it are on the fringes of County Meath. It used to be a separated town, in fact. It used to have two. It wasn't a full. The town wasn't two sides. One was in Meath and one was in Louth, or those baronies at the time. It's the bridging point. It is the last bridging point of the River Boyne before it enters the sea. And you'll see the bridging point is quite impressive, as we'll see in a moment. But just have a quick look here, and we will see that Drogheda is indeed a star city. Where is it? Up here, look. There we go. So Drogheda, this is the star of Drogheda. You can see the points. I don't know, will we see them in the map in a moment? From the looks of Drogheda now, that seems to be slightly outside of where the current town seems to be. The current town seems to be more here, which we'll have a look at. But this is Drogheda. It says it up here. So I suppose it is at the right point, is it? Make this a bit smaller. Go smaller. Right. So knew that was going to happen. We'll get back to it in a moment. So this is Drogheda, the Star City. I can't really make out the stars here. It's going to take. I'm not really bothered, to be honest. I'm fairly confirmed on the fact that most of the cities and towns are stars of some sort or have this feature of stars in them. So I'm not bothered by that. But anyway, the town of Drogheda, we had a look at the cathedral. We ended on that lovely cathedral. What we're going to look at here is the Boyne Viaduct. Okay, and the Boyne Viaduct, this is the bridging point. This is the last bridging point of the Boyne. And we have a nice picture here of the Boyne Aqueduct, and the trains will run along this. This is where it is here. If we drop the main onto here, we can we drop them in there? Will he go? We can drop them here. But this is a gigantic piece of masonry, huge, with, I think it used to be iron and they replaced it with steel in the 60s or the 70s. But look at the size of this thing. It's just gigantic. So this is going over the River Boyne in Drogheda. This is actually similar enough to the spot. There it is again. Mellifont Abbey. That's where we're headed to next. So that's a large piece of masonry, and if we want, we could definitely pull back here and you'll be able to see that this goes into a hill here. When you start messing around, whoop. So this actually, is it going under the ground even here? I can't see. There could be, there almost certainly is something under here. In the town of Drogheda, above the trains. It's probably a significant enough underground. Here you've got your odd shaped golf course. Is this even a golf course? Is this just odd shaped? Pitch and putt. Good old pitch and putt clubs. What would we do without them? Okay. So that's Drogheda. And the last bridging point, the town of the bridge. Bridge at the ford. Drogheda. Okay. So next we are going to carry on along back towards the Boyne Valley. Okay, and as we go back up along, we will see there is an abbey up here. Oh, we're going the wrong way. I need to turn this around. Way. Now that is quite the view. But I'll be fairly lost fairly fast there now. Anyway, I know which direction we're going. So the Boyne Viaduct is there. I suppose it's nice to see the surrounding landscape. It kind of kind of all dips in. Dips down here as well. So like there's a good chance, like once again, like there's a 6 to 12 plus foot covering of soil in most of these areas if it's not developed. There's a cathedral there. So we're going to come up here and we're going to find Mellifont Abbey. The map is not behaving. So what we're going to do, we're going to head in here. Mellifont. Let's go to Mellifont Abbey. There we go. That's the direction I like it. So, give you an idea of where we are. We're just outside of Tuireadh. Tuireadh is here. Mellifont Abbey is another large piece of masonry which is destroyed. There's a lot of destruction along the River Boyne as well. That's going to be a theme of a lot of videos, like destruction. Destruction everywhere. So Mellifont Abbey is an abbey. Where are we now? Is this it? It is. That's Mellifont Abbey. So it's largely destroyed. Not really much going on, but it is a nice little story to go with it. So Mellifont was a Cistercian abbey located close to Drogheda in Louth, and it was the first abbey to be built in Ireland. Abbey of the order to be built. So the sign. Oh yes. So the Treaty of Mellifont in 1603 was served as William of Orange's headquarters in 1690, and it served as William of Orange's headquarters in 1690 during the Battle of the Boyne. So it's an abbey of importance in Irish history, and it's located just outside of this area that had the activity of the ancient tales of Ireland. Because like all the abbeys are ruined. There's no question, all of them are destroyed. And if you look at the abbeys, we'll pull up, like there's a picture of Mellifont here. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. The abbeys, the detail on these things was divine. And you see, like even inside, there's, I don't know, I didn't pack up too many pictures, and we're not doing abbeys today, but another day we'll do abbeys. And all the abbeys are absolutely obliterated. If you think of like the Rock of Cashel, if you think of any of the abbeys in, there's one just outside Mayo on the way to Buddevant. There's one in Killarney and Muckross. So all of these destroyed abbeys. And they just put it down to time, but they are really destroyed. And these are solid buildings that, like the walls are a couple of feet thick, and all of these, they shouldn't come down that easy without, like, some serious force is required to take these buildings apart. The Boyne Canal Bridge. We're going to get on there now next. That's where our tale is going to get exciting. So I just said I'd pop into Mellifont just to have a look. I mean, this is a serious structure, like, you know. And look, all of this, it's all covered in grass, all buried. Like there's 6 to 12 feet. Like, look at this. You can see that the level here is higher than here. Look at this thickness of these walls. They're absolutely gigantic. To take one of these buildings down, you need some serious firepower. Look at these ceilings. I mean, this is a Gothic building. These buildings still stand today. I could probably bring up examples of buildings like this that are still standing. Look at this one here. Like, is this technology? Like the electrical fields. I don't know what they're called, but look at this. I mean, it's amazing. So that's Mellifont. We're not going to stay too long on Mellifont, but pretty cool. And it got destroyed, and it's close to. It's on the Meath Louth border. You can see here. So it's just in County Louth. The Mattock River. That will be a tributary of the Boyne, but potentially as we're talking about the different world, the way the rivers were, there was potentially waters flowing all through these areas within the canals, and this Mattock River would likely have been a canal. You know, this is likely to have been built, paved, blocked around the sides, you know, channeled, whatever. They used the direction of the land, obviously, for some, you know, for good reason. It would make sense to go with the flow of the land, whatever they were building on. But all this land here, like, consider again, it's just covered in dirt. And it's a different landscape when you look at the mountains, and we'll see some mountains and mountainscapes in a while later on in the video. Just to give you there's a stark contrast to the landscape design up in a mountain versus on the plain, the undulating plain. Circle there, circles everywhere. So you could probably find all sorts of shapes in there, but we're not going to. Well, I'm not anyway. Okay, so now we're going to start talking about the Boyne Canal, which I mentioned yesterday. And the Boyne Canal is a series of canals running 31 kilometres, 19 miles, parallel to the River Boyne, from Old Bridge, the Battle of the Boyne site, to the town of Navan. The canal system was used, this makes no sense, the canal system was used by horse-drawn boats travelling between Navan, Slane and the port of Drogheda. There are two sections in the canal system. The lower canal is from Old Bridge, Drogheda, near the mouth of the Boyne, to Slane, and the upper canals from Slane to Navan. So we're going to look at that today. And this is Old Bridge right here. So this is where the canal begins, the Boyne Canal. So what I'm proposing is that most rivers are more like canals. They're just canals that were canals that were built on a larger scale. They were just bigger, but they also were connected with the other canals that ran parallel to them. So what I would be proposing would be something like the river here was, you know, maybe it was much wider, but there was multiple canals running along here. Like maybe you could have maybe 5 canals, and maybe some ran up here. Show cursor while recording. Oh yeah, just gotta make sure that that's the case. Oh yeah, excellent. So the canals, so you could have, let's say, a lane of 5 here, for example, it would be all paved, limestone paved, Roman concrete. Like the way you see in the towns, it starts to become big blocks, big heavy blocks. You see it everywhere. You just have to look out in your local town. But this all has dirt covering the original paving or the original canal. And we'll see in a while what a canal looks like. And it's quite heavy duty, the block work to do a canal, you know. It's a big, big task, and it's just a big task. Anyway, so this is the beginning of this Boyne Canal. Okay, Old Bridge, right? Old Bridge, this area here, Old Bridge. This is where the Battle of the Boyne happened. We're not talking about current history in this video because it doesn't interest me so much for the moment. But the Battle of the Boyne was a battle in the early 1600s, which was when the invaders of Ireland took final control, it seems. Similar to what happened in the US in 1600s as well. It's like something happened in the 1600s. But I'm not talking about, I'm talking about the previous age before this happened. That's a totally different, like there's obviously relevance of this area to that event as well and what happened in Drogheda. It's a different story though. But this is Old Bridge and we're talking about canals today. We'll talk about a battle in a moment though, an earlier battle, the Battle of Maigh. We'll talk about that shortly. So this canal here starts here somewhere, I don't know where exactly, and it runs all along here, runs all along through past Newgrange, past Douth, and Douth, these mounds. If I hold it long enough, will it show me a picture? So you've got all the mounds here, which I've shown already in the previous video, that this area is filled with mounds. You've got Newgrange here, you've got Nouth, more mounds, Douth, another mound. This area obviously all covered in dirt, filled up. You've got circles, just odd landscape, and there's so there's the canal running all the way along here, but the canal is only like a section, you know, like this is probably it here, is it? This is the canal. So let's say that's running. Is that it? It could have been part of the canal. I know in parts, like there's ditches run by all the roads. So people in Ireland will know this when I mention it, but a lot of roads have a small drop below them and water tends to run, and they seem to be old channels in many cases. So it begs the question of how much was water used and how much was water controlled within the broader scheme. This landscape is different to what the landscape was before the cataclysm, and that goes for all countries. So this canal runs along here all the way along. So this is a canal now that they made, right? This is the canal. There it is. So it's running from this point here. So how many kilometers? 31 kilometers, 19 miles. They made a massive canal all the way through Slane, through here. We're going to look at this in a minute. All the way down here, around here, along here, all the way into Navan, into this place here. So there's two sections, the lower canals from Old Bridge and Drogheda to Slane, and the upper canals from Slane to Navan. The navigation channel is partly the River Boyne with a series of channels, so they're already almost admitting there's a series of channels in the River Boyne. And if you remove all the mud, as I was saying in the previous video, from the rivers, what would you see underneath? You know, already in the cities we see that it's heavy masonry in most of the port areas. So we assume that it's not heavy masonry in the countryside, but considering there's star forts hidden under the ground, we really can't dismiss what is under the ground and what level of masonry there was in these areas at the time. Like we already saw that gigantic aqueduct as well. Like those bridges are everywhere, all over the countryside. That's just one example. Um, yeah. So the Boyne navigation, series of canals. Yeah, it says they did it in 1748. You know, well done, lads. Maybe you did. Who knows? Um, I think it looks more old world to me, though, I must say. You know, I don't think they were capable of mining this, doing this in 1760s. I don't think it's possible. Um, so that's the Boyne Canal, and like it comes into Navan just over, just it's like this is the canal. So you've got the river. I don't know what side the river's on, but you can see there's loads of mud as well. And these are all directly into bedrock, and these are all over the place. I have one of these down the road from my house. Um, the little plaque there on it. But these are everywhere, and there's little canals everywhere. There's canals in the woodlands. If you go walking in your local woods, you'll see like buried bridges, and you know, there was an extensive canal network, and I think that the rivers are the main remnant of that canal network, but they're all overflowed gigantically now. Give you an idea of this little section. So Newgrange, so this is this section here. So just going back out will give you an idea of the total length of the canal. Canal goes from here, around here, all along here. So that's the canal. And the section that is here, this is this section here. So you've got Newgrange and Nouth and Douth, and then you've got the locks. They're in the River Boyne, so like it's crisscrossing the Boyne. It's crazy. I can't believe I even stumbled across it. I just started looking into it, and this just popped up. I was like, no way, there's actually a canal running parallel to the Boyne, and there's no really like. It makes sense. It makes logical sense to me, considering the level of masonry that is everywhere else. And I've seen it in the countryside. I've seen it in my local town. I've seen it in like Ballincollig up the back. I've seen it kind of down Mahon, along the shoreline. Um, Serious masonry, massive blocks. Um, but that's the Boyne Canal. And the reason I want to mention the Boyne Canal is because we're going to hop to a different canal there in a minute. And canals, this seems to be in a canal world. The old world seems to have been a canal world. And they used water in a different way, or more ways than we use it now. So the river will come out, the River Boyne, after the goddess Boann, will come out and it'll hit Slane. Slane is a very important place in Irish mythology and in Irish folklore, and in Irish history as well. So there's a big castle at Slane. They have concerts there, or they used to, back when there was concerts. There's a big castle here, and there's a great story to go over. There's a gigantic bridge as well, which I mentioned the other day. This bridge here, so as you cross, it's Tuireadh. A very narrow bridge, a very dangerous bridge. It's Slane, Slane Castle. We'll skip that for a moment. But Slane, the name of Slane, it comes after the name of a Fir Bolg. And the Fir Bolg were one of the inhabitants of Ireland in mythology. So Sláine, which is Irish for Slane, he was the son of Delta of the Fir Bolg, who was the legendary first High King of Ireland. Sláine was the legendary first High King of Ireland. Is that what that's saying there? Yeah. He was the legendary first High King of Ireland who cleared the forest around Brúna. All right. So that's an interesting one because the mining civilization. So where you have to consider that if you have this level of masonry, there would have to be a significant level of mining and quarrying to go with it in order to build what you're looking to build. It just goes without saying. And the level of masonry that we see, it makes sense that there was a serious mining culture going on. And also forestry, because you have to cut down to make the formwork. If you're making, let's say, concrete blocks, you generally use formwork to shape your block, whatever size it is you're doing. And also interiors, wood has been used in the interiors of all the most beautiful buildings in the world. So this lad here apparently cut down all the trees in Brúna. So Brúna is a very flat area in comparison to other areas of Ireland. So if we're going into the giant tree world where there was potentially giant trees, and you'd also have to consider that this guy, Sláine, was a giant, because it was the time of the giants, it was the time of mythology. So he cut down all the giant trees that were in Brúna. So Brúna is the area that we're looking at today. So this is what he did. So he came aboard, so the River Slaney, I don't know where that's in Wexford. So the story of the Firbolg is that they invaded Ireland with 5,000 men. Sláine and his 4 brothers, who were descended from one of the sons of Nemed, divided Ireland among themselves. Sláine, the youngest of the 5, took Leinster, Gan, North Munster, Sengen, South Munster, Gannon, Connacht, and Rudrega, Ulster. They erected Sláine as ruler over them. His wife, Fuad, his portion of the Firbolg were known as the Galón variant Galenga, named after their spears. He ruled only 1 year. He died at Dingry in County Carlow and was buried at Slane, County Meath, and succeeded by his brother Rudrig Macdella. So this is one of the Firbolg, the original invaders of Ireland. So in the Tales of Ireland, there was a couple of races that came in, and the Firbolg were one of them. And this is the tale of the Firbolg invading Ireland. They were descended of one of the sons of Nemed, which we'll talk about in a minute, and they divided Ireland between themselves. So this is Sláine. This is this place here. And we'll drop down into it and we'll have a quick look. This is the Boyne, as you can see, and the canal. Like the canal is part of the river. It's almost like the canal was half destroyed and they continued to use it. So look at the Slane Bridge going over the canal here. Pretty flipping big. Which way will we get a good view over here? I'd say. On the road. Oink. Drop that guy down. A lot of trees. Old Road Chimney. Slane Castle is in here, I think. Oh yes, the mills. That's another conversation. Mills. So the mills were all related to the canals as well. The mills were also iron mills as well. They make it out like it was all wool. They don't tell us where they got all the iron from, you know. Look at these old walls. This is all old structure. Mud in the middle, obviously. I suppose you're going to have a bit of mud in the bridge area, people would say. Just big masonry. And they say that the Brits built all these walls. That's the standard. But when you see the level of the amount of walls that are around, they just run everywhere. See that there, even that hill, obviously that's, the road work has been done. It's piled high. So that's the bridge in Slane. Not much to see in Slane, but there is good stories about Slane. So to the north of the village rises the Hill of Slane. There are historic sites located around the top of the hill. In the Dinshankas, the metrical, which I read from yesterday, a collection of bardic verse. The ancient Firbolg king, Slán Macdella, was said to have been buried here, the place that had been called Drumfuar. Fuar means cold drum. I don't know what drum means. That came to be known in his memory Druvaslana. There is an artificial mound on the western end of the hilltop. The hill may have been chosen as a site of a Christian abbey due to the presence of an existing pagan shrine, the remains of which may be 2 standing stones in the burial yard. So, would you believe I didn't even look for the Hill of Slane before I started this, but we'll have a quick look there now. 158 metres above the surroundings. To the north of the village rises the Hill of Slane. So I suppose the north is, which way is north? I get lost now. Do I not have a compass on this flipping yoke? Oh, there we go. I was pretty sure that was right. Of course, up was north. You'd never know. Gigantic quarry. So, where's Slane? Where were we? Navan, Slane. It's such a small place. We've got another more stories about Slane there to come. So yeah, great fun. So the Hill of Slane. Oh, here's the Hill of Slane. They built a lot of houses on it, did they? Oh my God. Slana would not be happy with that, I'd say. So the Hill of Slane. This is the Hill of Slane. I'll just try not to wreck the thing. Come on, give me some resolution here. Let's see, will it anything? It'll just take ages to buffer. The old internet, it's not great. A lot of people using the internet at the moment. So this seems to be the Hill of Slane, and I'm not sure where he's meant to be buried, but it's saying up here, around here. There's a couple of mounds here, so I'd say that's a fairly good. It's a fairly large mound there. Could there be some gigantic lad buried in one of them? Look at that, some sharp angles over here. Anyway, that's the Hill of Slane. And just get my bearings again. Slane Castle. So Slane Castle is actually up on the hill. I never realised it was so far up. What else have we got about Slane? Well, before we go on, before we talk more about Slane, we'll talk about the Firbolg, just to give a bit of background on that guy. So the guy that Slane is named after, Slana Mac, whatever his name is, he was the first High King of Ireland. So the Firbolg were the only race that seemed to have come to Ireland unchallenged. They were the first ones. They were the only ones that didn't have to fight someone, I think, to get. Maybe Césaire. I don't think they had to fight either. The first people, but the Firbolg didn't have a fight. They had to defend themselves, all right, which we'll talk about later. But in medieval Irish myth, the Firbolg, Firbolg, blah blah, are the fourth group of people to settle in Ireland. They are descended from Winter Nemed, an earlier group who abandoned Ireland. So the Nemedians were an earlier Irish group who had to leave Ireland, and they fled to different parts of Europe. And this actually links in with the stories of Scythia, and that they became slaves. I think that's the way the story goes. Those who went to Greece became the Firbolg and eventually returned to Ireland after it had been uninhabited for many years. After ruling it for some time and dividing the island into provinces, they were overthrown by the invading Tuireadh. So the Tuireadh we spoke about yesterday, and the goddess Boan, who the Boyne is named after, and the Dagda, who was the father of Boan's illegitimate son Angus. They are of the Tuireadh Danann. So originally the Firbolgs had the whole of Ireland, and the Firbolgs were descended from the Nemedians, who were, it seems, some sort of Scythians or slaves to the Scythians. They were imprisoned, the story goes. And this guy, he came to Slane. He cleared the forest around Brunabona. So he cut down all the trees and he built, potentially, the infrastructure. Is it the Firbolgs that put this infrastructure up? Day one, are they the miners? Because they're the men of the bag. They call them the men of the bag. I haven't got the snippet, but I've come across it. They were the men of I can't remember. It's the men of the bag. Anyway, regardless. So we're going to carry on with the Firbolg tale. I'm going to read a bit more. Those who went to Greece became the Firbolg. The Lower Goala Aram says that they were enslaved by the Greeks and made to carry bags of soil or clay. Hence the name Firbolg, made of bags. Oh, it's here. Class. The Maigh Tuireadh says that they were forced to settle on poor rocky land, but that they made it into fertile fields by dumping great amounts of soil on it. Now that's interesting. I didn't realise that was the tale. After 230 years of slavery, they leave Greece at the same time as the Israelites escaped from Egypt. In a great fleet, the Firbolg sailed to Iberia and then to Ireland. This is apparently what the Irish myths say, you know. So it's saying that these Firbolg, they went to Greece. They were the Nemedians. They fled to Greece. They were enslaved by the Greeks. They were carrying bags of soil for them, for the Greeks. So they were mining for the Greeks. Is that what that means? Then they came back to Ireland with the knowledge that they took from the Greeks. Maybe Ireland was, maybe there was still trees. Maybe it was forested. Maybe there was less infrastructure. Maybe there was no infrastructure. They were forced to settle on poor rocky land, but they made it into fertile fields by dumping great amounts of soil on it. So they say that about when they had to move to Connacht, I'd say that's where that little section comes from. But why is that? Did they do that in Greece? Did they put the soil on the land in Greece? Or did they put the soil on the land in Ireland? Or both? So led by their chieftains, they divide Ireland. The seat of the High Kings is established at Tara. So this seems to be the first Tara high seat. Site of significance through medieval times. We spoke about Tara, the hill of Tara, where there's a little church and there's a giant subterranean complex underneath some mounds. Quite a large hill. The last king, Ochid mac Eirc, is an example of a perfect king. Nice. The Firbolg are also said to have included two subgroups, the Fir Downan and the Fir Galón. So there was two subgroups, sub-races of Firbolg then. And obviously there was 5 brothers. And additionally, Slane is the location where St. Patrick lit the first Paschal fire in defiance of King Lear in 433. So that's kind of bringing it up to more current events that could even be closer to the Battle of the Boyne events with the changing of history. We're talking 1500s here. But this is where there was a fire burning at Tara, and you were only allowed to burn the fire at Tara. And Patrick, the tale goes, he lit a fire on the hill of Slane, which was against the rules. But the king was so impressed by Patrick's courage that he let him continue his missionary work in Ireland. That's the story. Just thought I'd pop it in there because that's also on the Hill of Slane. He built that big fire on the Hill of Slane, almost like a, I don't know, is that some sort of reference? Is that some sort of offering to the man that was buried in the hill, I wonder? It's an interesting one now. So, the Cong Canal. So we're going to leave Slane and leave our mythology for a moment, but we're going to take our characters with us. And we're going to move away from the Boyne Valley, where all these guys lived, because they also had involvement across the country on the other side in a place called County Mayo. More specifically, in a place called Cong, which is over here somewhere. There should be. There we go. And the reason I talk about that is because there's a canal in Cong as well, like the Boyne, except this is a dry canal. Better get those back. So the dry canal in Cong doesn't really have any water flowing through it for a fair amount of the time. So I researched this canal a little bit, as much as I could about it, because it turns out that this area, Cong, is a very, very rich mythological area. It is an area of the country where Ashford Castle is, quite a famous castle, I think. Some celebrities love it. And it's a location that's seeped in these stories that I've just said. So the characters of the stories, the Fir Bolgs and the Tuireadh, they had an epic battle over here. The Battle of Maigh, which is we'll talk about it in a minute. And the Fir Bolg were eventually banished to this section of Ireland. So Connacht is a section of Ireland that is kind of more or less, I suppose, is it kind of up here down to there section. And the Fir Bolg were given this section of Ireland by the Tuireadh, and the Tuireadh took the rest, I think, after the Battle of Maigh. But so this battle took place mythologically here. We'll talk about it in a moment. But this place called Cong has a dry canal. Okay? And the reason I was thinking about it is because essentially what I'm thinking that all the rivers are more likely canals in some shape or form. And this canal thing was interesting because this Cong Canal is also the Cong River by the looks of it. But to give you an idea, Cong is situated on an island formed by a number of streams that surround it on all sides. It is located on the isthmus connecting lochs Corrib and Mask, near the towns of Headford and Ballinrobe and the villages of Clonbur, the Neil and Cross. Cong is known for its underground streams that connect Loch Corrib with Loch Mask to the north. So that's particularly interesting because what I was proposing in the Boyne Valley is that the Boyne, and likely all rivers, dart off underground in many directions. And we know it as our modern sewerage system in many cases, but there's many parts that are just unused. But this area here seems to have a network of tunnels, they call them limestone fissures, where the water darts off all into the surrounding areas from the canal, which is also called a river. So just to show you what we're talking about. So we've got Ashford Castle down here. And once again, you could be looking for star forts here. You're looking for shapes. This is all covered. This area here now, this is where the battle took place, along here. And this area here is littered with cairns, souterrains, underground and passage tombs. And we're going to get into that in a minute, because what we're going to propose is that there is a massive infrastructure under the ground here, and we see the top of it as standing stones and mounds and souterrains and Fullocht Fias and all of these Neolithic names that have been used to describe these gigantic pieces of masonry. Obviously, they don't look like masonry now. They're heavily damaged. But this area is where that happened. And you have a canal. So this is Ashford Castle. So there's a big castle here. Have a look at Ashford Castle, because it is very cool. Dun, dun. 643. Wow. Way too much advertising going on there for my liking. So look, we've got a golf course here. What's under there? This area was heavily, look, a lot of sharp edges all over the place. This area, you've got to consider, was there a gigantic infrastructure under the ground in this area? There's a lot of forestry. Usually forestry is a great hiding place. Usually forestry is a great hiding place. Got a big quarry over here as well. Limestone. That's the stone that most of Irish walls are built with. See Nymphsfield? We'll have a story about Nymphsfield there in a minute. So, alright, the Cong Canal literally connects this lake, this loch, to this one, and it runs along here. In there. And it's a man-made structure for the most part, or for the all part, as far as I can see. So they say it was to link the two lochs, and they continued, and then it was damaged, and then they stopped. And swallow holes have been found and later blamed, so there was holes of water, holes coming from the canal. So the canal itself was obviously an infrastructure that was there. But it's dry most of the time now by the looks of it. It goes from Ballinkilla Bay on Lough Mask towards Cong in Mayo. So that's the bay, and that's Cong down here. And this lavish hotel on the lake. Some Fearbulloch was living there by the looks of it. So this is a picture of the canal. So this is Cong Canal, just in some random Mayo town. Small town by all accounts, tiny town. Significant masonry. And the water does flow through here, but it doesn't seem to flow all the time, from what I understand. So that's the Cong Dry Canal. It's a piece of masonry, and here it is. As I was saying earlier, like, it's difficult to make a canal. It's not an easy job. And this is a case in point, that look at the size of these blocks. Where are you getting the blocks from? Are you casting them? Where are you casting them? Where are you manufacturing all those blocks? Etc, etc, etc. It's a difficult job, but this is the Cong Canal. And the Cong River, which is essentially the Cong Canal, it seems, rises by the village Cong, and it's formed underground. So it's an underground river, the River Cong is, that links up with the canal by the looks of it. And it flows into Lough Mask. So it forms underground and outflows from Lough Mask, a little over Forna into Lough Mask. and it escapes through fissures in the cavernous limestone in the district. So what if the cavernous limestone is not actually cavernous and it was originally built, or maybe it looks like limestone now because all of the stuff that we think is limestone seems to be some sort of concrete. So what if these limestone caverns were part of the network that was in place at the time? And it flows in at Ashford Castle. Was there something interesting here? Big wide river divided by an island. Oh, there's an island. Pushes down. There's good fishing in there. It's good fishing, man. Oh yeah, there's a boundary. There's a Cong Canal, and the downstream is the Cong River. So it seems that Loch Mask links the Cong Canal, and then the Cong River goes into Loch Corrib. So Loch Mask is this one. This one here. Come on, Google. Buffer, man. So Loch Mask is this one. So that's with the canal. So the canal is this way. So they're saying like this was the canal. There was a little river originally here, they say, that ran into Loch Corrib. So the Cong River was going from here somewhere down, from this area, from Cong Village down, and then they made the canal up the other end to link them. Great idea, lads. Really good. And then they abandoned the whole project. Really great idea. Great work. Really solid work. So we're going to drop into Cong. So I didn't even go in there last time. We're going to go down to Pat Cohen's Gastropub. We're going to have another look at Cong. There's an island there. A couple of people knocking around. People waving for the Google man in Cong. That's class, isn't it? Brilliant. So what way am I going here? I'm not really sure. They all. So this, you can see, this is limestone again. This is the typical masonry. It's associated with Old Ireland. So Cong is just essentially just a tiny little village, really. What's this bridge here? Let's have a look at the bridge. So this is the Cong River, I suppose. It must be. Or the canal. So this is what you're looking at on the ground. And this is, obviously you can see here that this is all, heavy masonry along the banks, all heavy masonry along here. I don't know if they say this is the canal or the river. By my estimation, this should be the river section if they're saying that the river was the part that flowed into Loch Corrib. This is the closest to Loch Corrib. Loch Mask is above it. So if you come along here, like you'll see, this probably picks up flow. And I mean, for a moment, imagine that all of this water was way lower and that you removed all the mud and that there are channels flowing through. And these channels also flow off in other directions underneath, much more orderly. So that's Cong and Cong Canal. This is the Cong River here. Little house, yeah, great idea. We'll just build one of them there. So the most exciting part about Cong, because canals are only exciting if you're into that kind of stuff. What I'm talking about there is that heavy infrastructure that was created here. But this area was heavily inhabited, by the looks of it, at the time of the gods and the mythology of Ireland. So as such, there was a gigantic battle here between the Tuireadh and the Fir and the battle took place in this plain here, Maigh Tuireadh. And it's actually called Maigh Tuireadh Conga. And the battle, we're going to go into it here. So Maigh Tuireadh is a mythical site near Cong. Maigh Tuireadh is just east of the village of Cong in an unusual complex of puzzling stone circles and cairns. And Edward Ludd made drawings of some of these stones in early 1699. The plain bounded on the west and south by Lough Corrib. So on the west and south of Lough Corrib. So Lough Corrib is the lower one. So the west, that's west and south of Lough Corrib. Just east of the village of Cong. This is the area. No way. I was looking at a different area altogether. What's in this area? This could be great fun now. Is this the area? Loch Boffin. Let's read on. So just east of the village of Cong is an unusual complex of puzzling stone circles, yada yada yada. The plain bounded on the west and south by Lough Corrib stretches 12 miles east to Maigh, the fairy hill near Tuam. It is called Southern Maigh Tuireadh, the plain of the battalions. According to mythology of this area of stone cairns was the site of a great battle 3,000 years ago. The battle took place between the Firbolg and the Tuireadh Danann. The story tells us that the Tuireadh Danann, the people of goddess Danu, arrived in Ireland, demanded half of Ireland from the ruling Firbolgs. The Firbolgs refused, and a fierce battle ensued, lasting 4 days. The very ancient chronicler reported the battle commenced on the 11th of June in the year of the world 3303. The Firbolg, to commemorate the event, erected a large cairn of stones at Ballymacgibbon, 2 miles from Cong, after the first day's fighting. Each warrior carried a stone and the head of a slain enemy, and the first monument was built. The cairns covered artificial stone passages leading to the centre chamber where the ashes of cremated warriors were deposited. There are 5 similar monuments that stood in a line across the ancient battlefield for a distance of 5 miles to the northwest. So just taking a break there from that, there's a lot in it. But if you take the picture of the mud flood theory and you superimpose it onto this battle, and we're looking at cairns, they're all underground. All of those cairns, it's all underground. It's like Tara, it's like the Boyne Valley. It's just buried buildings, essentially, buried star forts, seemingly. So if you're looking at the cairns, you're asking yourself, well, are these are the tops of the infrastructure, and is there an infrastructure under the ground? So they didn't, the cairns covered. So like it says, they built large cairns. They erected them at Ballymacgibbon, 2 miles from Cong. So it says the Firbolgs built this area, is what I take from that. Firbolgs lost in the end anyway, and they were allowed to stay in Connacht, while the Tuireadh Danann took Tara as their own. And the Tuireadh Danann, as a reminder, they are the fairy folk of Ireland. They are the old gods of Ireland, the folk of the goddess Danu. So they say that they worship the goddess Danu. They were a supernatural race in Irish mythology, and they were the main deities of pre-Christian Ireland. Morrigan, Lug, Nuada, Angus, Bridget, Monaghan, Dagda. There's many Ogma, Bab, many different characters. These are characters that I mentioned in the last video as well. The Dagda was a very prominent character with the River Boyne. He was the father of Bowen, who's the goddess of the Boyne. She had a baby, Angus. She had a son, Angus, with him, a love affair with the Dagda. And Angus was born, and the Dagda stopped time for 9 months so that she could be pregnant, apparently. So the rivals of the Tuireadh were traditionally the Fomorians then, which we'll talk about in a minute. But they were another race that seemed to pop in a little bit later on, and they battled both the Tuireadh and actually I heard today they didn't battle the Firbolg and the Fomorians seemed not to battle. Somebody suggested that they might be the same. I'm not sure if that's the case. But we're going to take a quick look at Tuireadh, where this battle took place. So the battle between the Tuireadh, the magical fairy people, with these characters involved, Logan Nuada and all these guys, and they fought the Firbolg. And the Firbolg, the men of the bag, the Scythians, we'll get there. Those who went to Greece became the Firbolg. They were enslaved by the Greeks and made to carry bags of soil or clay, named the Firbolg. So, Maigh Tuireadh, I think this is Maigh Tuireadh, is Maigh Tuireadh, which we're talking about, the Battle of Maigh Tuireadh. And so that's what we are talking about here. And we're going to look at what happened. And we're going to have a quick look at the area. But the masonry all over this area is just insane. So before we go on to the Fomorians, we're going to have a quick look at where this is. Ballymagibbon. Where is Ballymagibbon? Ballymagibbon, Mayo. Ballymagibbon Cairn. Excellent. This should bring us right to where we want to be. Right, so this is Ballymagibbon. So this seems to be the area of the battle. I'm not sure why those directions are giving it like that. Look at this over here. Ballymagibbon Cairn, temporarily closed. So you'll be asking the question, is all of this area covered in soil, and you've got pieces popping up all over the place. You know, you're asking the question, what's under that ground? We'll have a look at the terrain. Is this a hill here? It looks kind of hilly. So this is what you're looking at. This is the Battle of Maigh Tuireadh. Large cairnstones at Ballymagibbon. And all of these here, like it's just an array of odd mounds. And these are all walls then. I mean, if we drop onto the road, you should see that. Yes, old school walls. So these here, these are generally walls that are covered in dirt and mud as well. You wouldn't notice them passing your whole life. Probably a bad example here, but if we move far enough up the road, generally they pop in. There we go. So these are the walls, but these walls are actually built onto the bedrock, and it's these walls. They're 3 feet wide in many places. Like there's another one that runs along there. It's a hill. It's a field boundary, but they're generally covered in mud. People do them up. But they carry on and on. It's all the way, every road, everywhere. Might have been good to show a ditch there if I had one, but it doesn't matter. So that's the Battle of Maigh Tuireadh, where the Firbolg, so Sláine, the guy from Slane, He was involved in that battle. They were all in the battle. And that's the area of Cong. So we'll have one last check around here. I mean, we're looking at this area and we're saying, what's under here? We've got a lot of forestry. Like generally forests are great for buried infrastructure. There's so much stuff hidden under forests. We've got the golf club as well then. So like the proposition that I was putting forward in the past is that a lot of these areas were owned by, let's say, your local clan, like Slánna. He would have his area of land and he would mine it. So he'd have trees, he'd cut down the trees, he'd dig, he'd look for limestone, he'd build buildings, build bridges, build the infrastructure. His land, he sculpted the land, for example. So like Slánna he would have done the building and he would have owned this area and he would have passed it on to his sons. They were probably were they all giants? Probably. But I think it was, it had to have been a heavy mining civilization. And actually, as we're here, I need to pop over to the mountain terrain just to show the difference. So we're just a little west of Cong over here. And this is a mountain area. As you can see, I suppose the walls continue into the mountains here. The walls here. Who's building those? The English, is it? Oh yeah, a load of slaves. Sure they did. Well, let's go back here a little bit. So this is not even a mountainous region. This is actually it's a very limestoney, rocky outcrop region. So this area of the country is covered in limestone. It's almost like it's mining waste, that type of texture to it, just flowing. So I'm not sure, is that something that was or wasn't going on? I like the idea that potentially what we're looking at is the root system of the giant trees, that most of the planet potentially had gigantic trees in different areas. For example, the mountainous areas are the areas where you'd have the last of the giant trees, and what you're seeing then is the root systems, the remaining root systems. But those root systems also, like there was giant trees everywhere, let's say, and all here. And then, like they said, that Slánna he felled all the trees in Brunabona. So Slánna, the fair bullock that we spoke about a minute ago, he took all of the trees out of here. And these areas here, where these are the last of the areas, the mountain areas, the last of what we see. Maybe not. But I like that idea, and that all the landscape is essentially a gridded out plan of all of the root system. They basically just started building upon the roots of the trees. Somehow things were stone. I'm not really sure how that fits into it. There is the whole petrification argument. It's not really something I'm going to discuss in these videos. So you're wondering what was going on in these times of the stories. And with that, we're going to introduce the Fomorians, who were the other main cast in the Irish tales. And they were a supernatural race in Irish mythology, portrayed as hostile and monstrous beings who came from under the sea or the earth. Later, they were portrayed as giants and sea raiders. They are enemies of Ireland's first settlers, and they are opponents of the Tuireadh, the other supernatural race. However, their relationship with the Tuireadh is complex, and some of their family members intermarry and have children, which was very, very, very common. The Fomorians have thus been likened to the Jotnar of Norse mythology. So there's definitely an overlap in Irish mythology and Norse mythology. We spoke about Dagda being referred to possibly as Odin, and there's parallels between other gods, but that's something to consider. The Fomorians were the gods who present harmful or destructive powers of nature, personifications of chaos, darkness, death, blah blah blah. And that was a picture by some guy. That is quite dark and twisted, but such it is. So the Fomorians, and they had interactions also with the Firbolgs and the Tuireadh. So with that, we are going to move along to finish the tale of the people who were here on this island. So the Leabhar Gabhála Éireann tells of Ireland being settled by six times by six groups. The first three were the people of Césaire, who we spoke about in the last video. Césaire was the daughter of Noah. She came here with a band of women and 3 men. And 2 of the men died, and then the flood came. So they came to Ireland before the flood, and the flood came, and one of the men survived. Fintan MacBocra, he turned into a salmon and saw the flood. So they were the people of Césaire. Then there was Partholon, and then there was also the people of Named. We're not going to go into them today. And they all had to abandon Ireland. Then the Firbolg came after them. So the Firbolg, who the leader is buried in Slane, on the hill of Slane, the same hill where St. Patrick was said to have built the fire to rival the fire on Tara. 30 of Nemed's people were killed in warfare. Of this, 31 group fled, one to Britain, one to Greece. I'm not really sure about that. So they are the people. So the Firbolg and the Tuireadh Danan, people of Named, people of Partholon, people of Césaire, and I think the last people were like the Milesians. They left them out for some reason. Maybe I just left it out of the cutting. It's just a bit about the Fomorians. Sometimes they're said to have that body of a man and the head of a goat. That's we're all familiar with that fella, Pan. Laur na Húdra, Book of the Dún Cow. Boan is actually linked to the cow as well, funnily enough. The goddess Boan, Bo in Irish is cow. The Fomorians have relationships. So yes, so the interesting thing is that the Fomorians intermarry with the Tuireadh Danan, and Elaha, who we discussed in the last video. Elaha, who was the grandfather of the Dagda. Is he the grandfather or the father of Dagda? I think he was the grandfather of the Dagda. So they intermarried, and Elaha had a child with Eru, the Irish goddess Eru. Eru was one of 3 sisters. I think she was the 3 sisters, which could be the Morrigan archetype or person even. I can't remember off the top of my head. We'll save it for another video. But his son Bress actually became the High King of Ireland for a while. Bress was, after the Maigh battle. So after the battle that happened here at Maigh, Bress, son of Elaha, ended up becoming leader of the Tuireadh Danan. So Fomorian became a leader of the Tuireadh Danan because Nuada lost his hand in the battle, and the Tuireadh Danan had a rule that if you lose your hand, or if any part of your body is damaged, you're not fit to be king. So Nuada had to step down, and Bress took in, and it was a terrible time actually for the Tuireadh Danan under Bress's rule. There's a whole story that goes with that. I think we actually discussed that story in one of the podcasts, the story of Bress. But it was tough time. But Nuada eventually ends up, he gets a metal arm. Nuada gets a new arm made. I think the Dagda makes him an arm. and Nuada gets a new arm made, and he becomes the leader of the Tuireadh again, and Bress is deposed. So that's that story of Bress. Geoffrey Keating, in his 17th century History of Ireland, claimed that the Fomorians had been a seafaring people descended from Noah's son Ham. That's another theory that floats around, Noah's son Ham. And you've got Noah's granddaughter Césaire. Is Césaire Ham's son, unbeknownst to us? Ham's daughter. Is Césaire Ham's daughter? If she was the granddaughter of Noah, and so could Césaire be the daughter of Ham? And that maybe the Fomorians, that after the deluge, they just became the Fomorians. They became the sea people, the underground people. It was a different world, but they adapted, they survived. They became the sea people, maybe. And maybe that's why, maybe Noah's son Ham did a section of them survive the flood as the Fomorians. Possibly. So that's the Fomorians. And next, I think we're going to head back to Slane. We can't get this to move. Oh, and the phone is ringing. Sorry, lads. I will get back to you. Unfortunately, I have some business at the moment. So in fact, funnily enough, I'd forgotten that that's going to be the end of this video. So that phone call is good timing, probably to tell me that the time is ending for this video. So what I'm going to end on is that this area is filled with cairns and passage tombs all about the area, and they're all underground. And similarly enough, we also have that same pattern over here. Cairns and underground complexes. Obviously, because everything is covered in a thick layer of soil that came from wherever it came from. It's there now anyway. And it's on some heavy masonry. So in the next section, we're going to examine what are called souterrains and cairns. And we're just going to have a look at them from the point of view of they are heavy masonry that may have deeper underground complexes beneath them, because in many cases they do. And these are unexplored complexes. And these complexes link to lakes, they link to underground. There's underground caverns everywhere that is well known in local circles. So where there was one section actually, it's in the next, is it in the next Boyne Canal Bridge? Is it in the next section? I think it was. Yeah. We'll save that for the next day. So I mean, that's the story of Ireland so far. When we come back, we're going to come back over to this section of the country again. We're going to join our mythical characters, the Firbolg, the Fomorians, and the Tuireadh, and we're going to come back here, back to Brunaboyna, where the Firbolg, Sláine, cut down all the trees. He deforested Brunaboyna, and he lived around here somewhere. He was buried in Slane. I don't know where he lived. So we're going to come back here again and we're going to chat some more about this area. We're going to see what more hidden gems pop up. We're going to still consider rivers as canals, and we'll probably we're going to go through Slane, we're going to come down, we're going to look at Navan, we're going to go through some interesting points at Navan. The canal ends at Navan, so the canal that we started with, the Boyne Canal. The Boyne navigation goes from here all around here and into Navan in there. Is that the one in Navan, I'd say? Let's have a look there. So this is the Boyne Canal Bridge in Navan, I'm pretty sure. And I think that's it. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll be back again with part 3, where we'll revisit these towns and we'll discuss more about the main buildings in the towns, so the cathedrals and the churches and the abbeys. There's a couple of abbeys around here. We're going to carry on along the course of the Boyne again, and we're going to go to Navan, we're going to go to Trim, and we're going to follow it all the way back to its source, back to the Well of Segus, which is Carberry, down here somewhere, down here. And there's a couple of hidden gems all along the way to be enjoyed. So with that, thank you very much for, if you spent the time watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back again with part 3. And in part 3, as I said, we're going to discuss some more fascinating buried Ireland. We'll see you then. Enjoy yourself and think good thoughts.